The thing is, I did not kiss Cole because I wanted to leave my husband. At least, that was the story I kept using when people asked why I did it. One bottle, two laughs, one husband standing close enough to see everything. Of course, I told myself it was only a party game. By the next week, Eli had stopped asking questions and started keeping records. My name is Ingrid Mercer. I was 34, and I worked as a senior brand experience manager for a boutique hospitality agency. The thing is, I knew how to make a room feel chosen before people inside it even understood what they wanted. Of course, that made it easy to believe I understood desire better than my own husband did. One guest list, two linen boards, no crime. That was how I thought about most things then. A room needed light, timing, and one scene people would repeat on the ride home. That was my job. I designed interactive moments for private dinners, hotel openings, and launch parties where rich guests pretended they had not paid to feel special. Eli came to my office that Thursday evening with my spare flats in one hand and a paper bag of food in the other. He was 37, calm in the way that made other people trust him too fast. He worked as an operations consultant, which meant he made messy things quiet. Schedules, budgets, broken systems. Sometimes me. He said I had probably skipped lunch again. He was right. That annoyed me more than being wrong would have. Years before, on our anniversaries, we used to pick one cheap diner and pretend it was a 5-star restaurant. Eli would fold the paper napkin like it was linen and leave a little handwritten review card in my coat pocket after. 5 stars for ordering fries like a woman with vision. 4 stars because the ketchup was dramatic. I kept those cards in a box under winter scarves. That was real. I know that. But real things can start to feel small when nobody else can see them. That evening, Eli placed the food on my desk and asked softly what had changed between us. Not what I had done, not who I was texting, just what had changed. What he meant was that he missed me. What I heard was that he wanted me to explain why I was not satisfied with a husband who remembered shoes. I told him work had been heavy. I said events made me strange. He nodded, but his eyes stayed on the untouched food. After he left, Marcy Vale leaned against the doorway with her phone in one hand. She had been divorced for 8 months and wore freedom like perfume she sprayed too much of. She said Eli loved like a hotel concierge with a pension plan. I told her not to be cruel. My mouth smiled before the sentence finished. The hotel showcase was on a Friday night, on the terrace of a renovated building with glass railings and heaters that clicked every few minutes. The air smelled like wet stone, orange peel, and white wine. I had built the whole evening around one idea. Guests should feel like they had entered a secret before anyone else knew the door existed. The thing is, I was good at that kind of lie. One terrace, 80 guests, one husband missing from the front row. Eli texted at 7:12 that the emergency audit at his client's site had run late. He said he was sorry. He said he would still try to come before my welcome speech if the numbers closed in time. Of course, I wrote that it was fine. It was not fine. Fine was the clean word I used when the real word would make me sound needy. Marcy stood beside me near the bar, wearing a silver blouse and watching my face instead of the room. She asked if the careful husband was saving another broken system. I told her he had work. She said he always had work when I had a moment that needed witnesses. That sentence landed somewhere deep enough to stay. Cole Bennett arrived while the photographer's assistant was fixing a softbox near the railing. He was not supposed to matter. He was 36, an event photographer with rolled sleeves, a black camera strap, and the kind of smile that waited for people to step toward it. He had done shoots for 2 of our smaller hotel clients. I knew him well enough to say hello. Not well enough to lean toward him when he spoke. He said the terrace looked expensive without begging to be admired. I said that was the goal. He looked past the flowers, past the branded cards, past the champagne tower I had adjusted 6 times. Then he looked at me and said the room felt alive when I stood in it. 2 guests were close enough to hear him. One of them turned toward me with a new kind of attention, as if Cole had translated something they should have noticed earlier. That mattered. I hated that it mattered. Then I used it anyway. Eli missed the speech. He watched the end later from Marcy's story, he told me afterward. He said I sounded confident. He said the room looked beautiful. He asked if I had eaten. That was Eli. Even his praise came with a practical handle attached. After the showcase, people drifted toward the indoor bar because no hospitality night ends when the program says it does. Cole stayed near me while staff cleared small plates from the terrace. He showed me a few photos on his camera screen. In one, I was laughing near the railing, chin tilted up, the city behind me like it had agreed to the shot. I looked bright in that photo. Not useful, not scheduled. Bright. Cole asked where to send the edits. The agency email was printed on the cards stacked beside my hand. My thumb still opened my personal contact screen. That was the first clean choice. I gave him my number. Nora Quinn saw it from near the service station. She had known Eli and me since our second year of marriage, back when she and Jules hosted soup nights because none of us could afford dinners out. She did not speak. She only looked from my phone to my face, then down at the tray of empty glasses she was carrying for no reason except nervous hands need jobs. Later, Eli picked me up because he made the audit finish and drove across town anyway. He arrived with his tie loosened, his eyes tired, and a paper cup of ginger tea because my voice always went rough after hosting. He asked how the night went. I told him it was done. Not good. Not important. Done. He looked at me once, then drove without music. At home, my phone lit up while I was taking off my earrings. Cole had sent the terrace photo and written that some women made rooms answer to them. Eli saw the name. He did not reach for the phone. He did not ask to read the message. That would have been easier to fight. The next morning, while coffee dripped into the pot, Eli asked why Cole was texting my personal phone after midnight when the photos could have gone to the agency. Specific. Factual. One named thing. What he meant was that the shape of something had started to worry him. What I heard was that my husband had begun counting my face. I told him Cole was a vendor. I said hospitality did not stop at 5. I said he only cared because another man had said out loud what he had stopped seeing. Eli put my blue mug on the counter instead of carrying it to me. It was a small change. Small things were his language, so I should have read it better. Marcy found me later at the office coffee counter. I told her Eli had turned a photo message into a case file. She said steady men loved calm women until calm women remembered they still had blood. I laughed because she made resentment sound like self-respect. Nora passed us with a stack of folders. She heard Marcy say blood. Her eyes moved to mine. She gave a small smile that did not stay long. I told myself Nora was tired. By Wednesday, Cole had sent 2 more photos. Eli had stopped asking about dinner. Marcy had started calling Cole the photographer with timing. I said she was making it sound cheap. She said attention was only cheap when you had too much of it. Of course, I kept my phone face down after that. Jules's loft party was supposed to be easy. It was one of those Saturday nights people describe as casual after cleaning for 6 hours. The loft smelled of citrus vodka, warm pizza boxes, and rain drying off coats near the door. There were low lamps, a scratched wooden coffee table, and a rug with a red pattern that made every dropped glass look planned. The thing is, I went there wanting Eli to see me in a room where other people still did. 1 bottle, 2 couches, no private place for pride to sit. Jules hugged Eli first, then me. Nora was already near the kitchen island, cutting limes with the focus of someone avoiding conversation. Hannah, Eli's younger sister, sat on the windowsill with one knee pulled up, watching the room like she had not decided yet whether she belonged in it. Marcy arrived late and loud. Cole came with her. That part was not my plan. Not exactly. Marcy said she had invited him because Jules had wanted pictures of the renovated loft, and Cole owed her a favor. I looked at Cole's camera bag, then at Eli's hand around a glass of soda water. Eli asked quietly if I knew Cole would be there. I said it was a party, not a seating chart. What he meant was that he did not want to be surprised in front of people. What I heard was that he wanted me to act guilty before I had done anything. For the first hour, nothing happened that anyone could name. Cole complimented the loft. Eli helped Jules fix the speaker when the playlist stopped. Marcy told a story too loudly about her divorce papers arriving during a pedicure. People laughed because Marcy always made pain sound like a cocktail with a sharp garnish. Cole stood near me by the bookshelf and showed me a photo from the showcase. He said I looked like I was about to dare the room to disappoint me. I said maybe the room should try harder. Eli heard that. He did not interrupt. He looked down at the speaker cable in his hand and wound it carefully. That care annoyed me. Everything careful annoyed me then. Around 11, someone found a green glass bottle from the bar cart. Jules held it up and said we were all too old for Spin the Bottle, which was why it would be funny. People groaned. Marcy clapped. Nora said maybe not. Hannah said nothing. Of course I said people should stop acting like a bottle had legal power. Eli looked at me then, not angry, just tired in advance. The group made a loose circle on the rug. I sat between Marcy and a woman from Jules's office. Cole sat across from me, one knee bent, his camera bag behind him. Eli stayed near the bookshelf at first, holding my glass because I had handed it to him without thinking. Marcy told him to sit. He said he was fine where he was. That should have been enough. A door, open and quiet. Instead, I twisted my wedding ring because my finger had gone warm. The stone pressed into my palm. I told myself I did not want to scratch the bottle or catch the ring on the rug. That was the story. Small, practical, clean. I slipped the ring off and placed it beside my knee. Hannah saw. The first spins were harmless. Jules had to kiss his own girlfriend on the cheek. Nora got the woman from his office and made a theatrical bow before touching her cheek with 2 fingers. People laughed. The room relaxed because the first risks had passed without damage. Then Cole spun. The green bottle turned on the rug with a dry glass sound. It slowed once toward Marcy, moved past her and pointed at the space between my crossed ankles. Not directly at me, someone said. Marcy laughed and said close enough. Nora's hand moved to her phone, not lifted high, just low near her lap. Hannah sat straighter. Eli was still beside the bookshelf with my glass in his hand. Cole looked at me, not at Eli. That mattered too. He asked lightly if we were playing by strict rules or party rules. I could have made a joke and stood up. I could have said no. I could have reached for my ring and put it back on. All those choices were close enough to touch. Instead, I smiled. I said party rules. The room laughed, but the laugh had thin edges. Cole leaned forward. I leaned too. The kiss was not wild. That would be easier to explain. It was controlled, almost neat, which made it worse. Long enough for the room to stop helping us. Long enough for Eli to understand that I knew he was watching. When I sat back, my mouth still held the shape of a smile. No one spoke for 1 second. The heater near the window clicked. Someone's phone buzzed on the table. Cole looked down first, which should have told me something about him. He liked sparks. He did not like smoke. Eli crossed the room. He did not come to me. He did not speak to Cole. He bent down and picked up my wedding ring from the rug. His fingers closed around it carefully, the same way he used to pick up the little diner review cards before sliding them into my pocket. Then he placed the ring on the coffee table beside the green bottle. 1 ring, 1 bottle. No speech. For a second, the room opened in a way I had not expected. Eli was not controlling the game. He was not trying to make me small. He was trying to carry something private out of the dirt before the room stepped on it. His hand stayed near the ring for 1 breath. The thought came plain enough to hurt. Then Cole gave a small smile like the scene had made him important. Marcy exhaled a laugh that was not quite steady. I closed the door inside myself. I told myself Eli was performing dignity because calm men knew how to make women look loud. Hannah stood up and asked Eli if he wanted to leave. He said not yet. His voice was level, but the levelness had weight. I told Hannah not to make it dramatic. She looked at me as if the word dramatic had changed ownership. In the bathroom later, the mirror was too bright, and the sink smelled like lemon soap. Marcy followed me in, but she did not have her usual grin. She said the kiss had gone a little far. I told her it was spin the bottle, not a vow renewal. She looked at my bare finger and then at the door. That was the first time Marcy made me feel alone while standing beside me. When I came back, Nora's phone was low in her hand. The screen glowed red at the top. I saw it. I told myself she was checking a message because that was easier than asking why someone would record a room that had stopped laughing. Eli stood by the door with my coat already folded over his arm. He asked if we could go home. Not loud, not cold, just quiet enough to make everyone listen. I said he was turning a stupid game into a public punishment. The green bottle stayed on the coffee table beside my ring. The apartment smelled like old coffee the next morning. Eli was already in the kitchen when I came out, wearing the grey shirt he used for weekend errands. My blue mug was in the cabinet. Not by the machine. Not on the counter. In the cabinet, behind a stack of bowls. The thing is, small things can become instructions when the person doing them has loved you for years. 1 mug, 2 closed doors, no raised voice. Eli made coffee only for himself. I stood near the doorway and waited for him to say something about the kiss. He did not. He rinsed the spoon, placed it on a folded towel, and asked if I had a headache. That almost made me laugh. Even then, he could not start with anger. He had to start with water, aspirin, and whether I had eaten before drinking. I told him I was fine. He said the kiss was not the whole problem. He said it was the showcase texts, the phone turning over, the jokes with Marcy, the way I had needed witnesses before I would say anything true. He said the bottle had only made the pattern visible. There it was. Not one incident. The whole map. What he meant was that he had been adding small things because I refused to name the large one. What I heard was that my husband had been building a file against me in his head. I told him he made everything sound like an audit. I said he remembered details better than feelings. I said no woman wanted to be loved like a checklist with clean margins. He put both hands on the counter. Not hard. Just enough to hold himself in place. Then he said something I did not know what to do with. He said he had not known how to make me feel wanted lately. He said he thought making life easier had counted for more than it did. He said maybe he had hidden behind usefulness because desire made him feel clumsy. That was vulnerability. Plain. Unpolished. Late. I could have taken it. Instead, I told him he was using sadness as leverage because it had worked on everyone at the party. His face changed by 1 inch. Less, maybe. The mouth first, then the eyes. That was the first thing I broke that morning. Hannah arrived before noon. Eli had not called her in front of me, but she came with coffee in a paper tray and the kind of tight calm families use when they have already decided who is bleeding. She placed 1 cup near Eli and did not offer me the second until a moment too late. She said Nora's clip had reached 3 people already. She said nobody had posted it publicly, but people had seen enough. Then she asked why I had taken off my ring before the bottle stopped. Specific. Clean. Worse than an accusation. I said my finger was swollen. Hannah looked at my hand. My finger was bare and normal. I told her she was turning a party game into a family trial. I said Eli was an adult, not a wounded child she needed to collect from school. Eli said my name once, softly. I hated the softness. It made the room choose him before I could speak. Hannah did not yell. She lifted the coffee she had brought and carried it to the sink without drinking. Then she told Eli she would wait downstairs if he needed her. That was how she left me. Not with a slammed door, with untouched coffee. After she went, I changed tactics. I sat at the table, folded my hands, and told Eli maybe the kiss had looked worse than it was. I said maybe I had wanted attention. I said maybe he and I had both let the marriage get quiet. Controlled partial truth. Enough to sound mature. Not enough to give him the real thing. Eli listened. That was the problem. He listened too well. He asked if I was willing to stop speaking to Cole privately while we worked through it. The compromise in my mouth turned sour. I said he had no right to choose my contacts like a school principal. I said if he wanted honesty, he could not punish every honest admission with rules. The partial truth failed before it reached the floor. Eli walked to the hallway where the canvas tote from the party sat near the door. We had brought home 2 bottles by accident because Jules had shoved leftover drinks into everyone's bags. Eli reached inside and pulled out the green glass bottle from the game. For a second, I thought he would throw it away angrily. That would have helped me. Anger is simple. He only carried it to the recycling bin, set it inside, and closed the lid. No speech. No look. The sound of the lid was small, plastic against plastic, but it ended something. I told myself he was being theatrical with trash. By evening, Jules had texted Eli, not me, to apologize for letting the game happen. Nora had not answered my message asking if people were being weird. Marcy sent one voice note saying everyone needed to relax, but her voice had less sparkle. Cole sent nothing until almost midnight, when he wrote that parties were messy and people took things too seriously. Of course, I liked that message. Not because it was kind. It was not. It let me stay inside the version where Eli was sensitive, Hannah was protective, Nora was dramatic, and I was only a woman who wanted someone to remember she could still be desired. That night, Eli moved to the guest room. He took 1 pillow, 1 phone charger, and the little stack of diner review cards from the box under my scarves. I saw the box open on the closet floor. Empty. My hand went to my ring finger, but the ring was still on the coffee table where Eli had left it after the party. I had not put it back on. Not yet. Not because I meant anything by it, of course. 2 rooms, 1 hallway. Nothing left to call normal. Cole's studio event happened the next Friday in a converted warehouse with white walls, black track lights, and concrete floors that made every step sound like evidence. He had invited me earlier in the week before the party became something people whispered around. I told myself going would prove I was not ashamed. That was the word I used because it sounded stronger than stubborn. The thing is, shame only works if you still want back into the room you damaged. 1 gallery wall. 2 unread messages from Eli. No accident. Eli had asked me that afternoon not to make things worse before we talked that night. He did not say, "Do not go." He said he wanted 1 evening without another public scene entering the marriage before he could understand the last one. That was reasonable. I know how reasonable it sounds now. At the time, I heard a lock sliding into place. Marcy told me over text that staying home would look guilty. Then, 20 minutes later, she said maybe I should be careful because Nora was not answering her either. That second part bothered me, so I ignored it. I wore a black dress that made me look composed. Not available, not reckless, composed. That was another costume I knew well. Cole greeted me near the entrance with 2 plastic cups of wine. He kissed the air near my cheek and said he was glad I came. His eyes moved quickly behind me, checking who else had seen. Agenda B lived in that little glance, though I did not call it that then. He liked me arriving. He did not want my arrival to become a problem he had to hold. There were 20 people in the room. Assistants, clients, a few friends, 2 models from an old campaign. Cole had printed 1 terrace photo from my showcase and placed it near the back wall. I was in it, laughing near the railing, looking like a woman who belonged to herself. He said it was one of his favorite shots. I said Eli had hated that night. Cole said husbands hated anything they could not frame. It was clever enough to hurt someone not present. I laughed anyway. Eli arrived at 8:40. Jules had told him I was there. I knew because Jules texted me 1 sentence after Eli walked in, saying he was sorry but he did not want to keep being in the middle. The room shifted when Eli entered. Not much. Enough for me. He wore his dark coat and no anger. That was the thing about him. He could bring quiet into a room like weather. Cole stepped half a pace back from me, small, clean, protective of himself. Eli came to my side and asked if we could speak outside. What he meant was that he would not make another room watch us break. What I heard was that he had come to collect me. I said we could speak there if he had something to say. My voice carried because the concrete did that. People did not turn fully, but bodies angled. That is how public scenes begin. Not with gasps, with shoulders. Eli looked at Cole, then at me. He said he was not there for Cole. He said he was there because I had promised we would talk at home and instead made another audience. I told him maybe the audience existed because private talks with him always became maintenance meetings. He did not answer fast. Then I said the one thing that was true. I said he remembered every schedule, every bill, every reservation. But sometimes he forgot that I was a woman standing right in front of him. The room gave me nothing. No laugh, no support, no release. Eli did not deny it. He looked at me with the tired honesty of someone who had already named the same flaw to himself. He said I was right about that. He said he had loved me in ways that were too quiet and expected me to hear them. For half a second, the truth stood between us without choosing a side. Then he said, being right about pain did not make cruelty honest. That sentence had nowhere convenient for me to put it. So I made another choice. I told him he was using beautiful sentences now because the whole room could hear him. I said if he had spoken like that before, maybe I would not have needed someone else to remember I was alive. Cole looked at the floor. Not at me. The floor. Eli nodded once, not in agreement. It was more like he had placed my answer somewhere final. He said he would handle things properly now. No legal words, no threat. Nothing I could repeat later and make him sound cruel. That was when his silence changed shape. It stopped sounding injured. It started sounding organized. I followed him into the hallway because people were watching, not because I wanted to stop him. The hallway smelled like paint and old radiator heat. Eli stood near a metal door marked "Staff Only" and said he had one real offer left. He said if I came home now, without Cole, without Marcy, without another post, we could sit with someone neutral and say the ugly things without an audience. It was the most direct thing he had offered in months. I heard a condition. I told him I would not audition for the role of grateful wife because he had finally decided to perform pain neatly. His hand moved toward his coat pocket, then stopped. He did not take anything out. He only said he understood. That was worse than if he had said I was wrong. Back inside, Cole was near the wall taking down the printed terrace photo. He said the lighting was bad there. It was not. He did not want my face on his wall while my husband stood 20 feet away. I took a photo anyway, one where Cole's hand was near my waist but not touching, close enough to deny, clear enough to wound. I posted it with no caption. Voluntary line crossed, not impulse, not whine, not spin the bottle. My thumb pressed the button while I was sober. I texted Marcy from the bathroom that Eli was acting final. She answered with one grey heart, then nothing. One heart. No words. No person on the other side. Cole found me near the sink and said maybe we should not make tonight bigger than it was. He said Eli seemed calm in a way that might become complicated. He did not say he was scared. He did not say he was leaving. He only began protecting the edges of his own life. When I came out, Eli was gone. No slammed door. No last look through the glass. No scene I could call controlling. Only the blank space where his dark coat had been, and everyone in the room pretending they had not watched me choose it. The mediation office waiting room smelled like printer toner and lemon cleaner. I arrived expecting the first appointment Eli had asked for, the neutral room he had mentioned outside Cole's studio. There were beige chairs, a glass water dispenser, and a receptionist who spoke in a voice trained not to react. The thing is, I still thought I was walking into a conversation. One envelope, 2 signatures. No room left to perform. Eli was already there with Hannah. He stood when I came in. Hannah did not. Her hands were folded over a folder on her lap, and her eyes stayed on the carpet until the receptionist called my name. A man in a grey suit asked if I was Ingrid Mercer. I said yes because there was no reason not to. He handed me a thick envelope and asked me to sign for receipt. My fingers found the pen before my mind found the room. I signed my name on the little tablet. The man gave me the envelope. I held it against my coat and looked at Eli. He did not look proud. That mattered later. He looked clear. Inside was a petition for dissolution of marriage with temporary orders. The first hearing was listed for the following month. Temporary possession of the apartment. Restricted use of the joint account for household expenses. A proposed schedule for mediation before the hearing. The mediator came to the doorway and said the appointment could continue if both parties wanted to discuss temporary logistics. Temporary logistics. That was what my marriage had become in a waiting room with beige chairs. I said this was punishment for one stupid party game. The mediator looked down at the first page, then at me. She asked why the submitted video showed me removing my wedding ring before the bottle landed on Cole. Neutral, not cruel, simply true. My mouth opened. Nothing useful came out. The evidence was not new. Nora's clip from the loft. The studio photo, Cole's late-night messages, the timeline of work events that were not work events. No miracle, no spying, just my own choices placed in order. Cole texted before lunch to say he could not be named in marriage paperwork and that the kiss had been just a game. Then his profile picture disappeared from the thread. I moved into a short-term apartment above a dry cleaner where the hallway always smelled like steam and plastic covers. The joint account became restricted to listed household costs until the hearing. Nora stopped inviting me to dinners. Jules apologized to Eli, and Hannah never answered my messages again. Cole deleted every tagged photo with me and told mutual contacts I had misunderstood the attention. My agency moved me off interactive guest campaigns because clients had started asking whether I could keep private scenes private. The thing is, I thought the kiss would prove I was still the kind of woman a room could want. Of course, rooms are easy. They clap, laugh, record, and forget. Eli had been harder than that. He remembered the diner cards, the blue mug, and the version of me that did not need witnesses to feel real. The green glass bottle was gone from the recycling bin when I checked. I had called it a game, but Eli was the only one who stopped playing.